prior to humanity's inception, before illumination tore through the gloom, and preceding the sky being stretched out like a protective canopy over the world, God fashioned an entity never intended for mortal eyes to perceive. Deep within the unlit, earliest waters, where perpetual stillness reigns, resides a monster whose mere mention causes the foundations of the cosmos to shake. This is Leviathan, sovereign over the arrogant, the aquatic dragon, the coiled snake impervious to human control. Far from being a fictional tale or ancient folklore, this entity is documented within the sacred texts. Job provided horrifying specifics regarding its nature. Isaiah foretold its demise as a slaughtered beast in the final era, and Enoch beheld it in his apocalyptic revelations. While fashioned alongside all marine life on the fifth day, Leviathan stands unique among oceanic beings. It was designed for a specific, formidable objective, a dark intention that remains pending. Its armor consists of scales interlocked so closely that no atmospheric gap exists. Its gaze flares with the brilliance of the sunrise. From its mouth issue flaming torches, projecting blazing embers. Vapor resembling smoke from a vigorous cauldron streams from its nose. Its exhalation ignites charcoal, with fire leaping from its jaws. When it surfaces, even powerful men are struck with dread. Projectiles cannot deter it. No parallel exists for this fearless sovereign of the deep on the planet. This raises a profound question. Why would a compassionate, merciful deity craft such a terrifying entity? The solution is concealed within the fundamental reason for existence itself. The monster's existence serves to illuminate a critical theological truth: that only God possesses complete dominion, that He alone fabricates what human effort cannot annihilate, and that only He determines the timing for releasing or restricting destruction. Leviathan is not inherently wicked. Rather, it functions as an instrument, a profound, latent prediction submerged below the surface. This presentation is less a factual report and more an unveiling, a deep exploration into overlooked biblical texts, hidden forecasts, and the apocalyptic sights granted to ancient seers. You are about to witness the scenes revealed to Job. You will learn of Isaiah's proclamation concerning the serpentine monster. You will uncover Enoch's celestial insights. You will comprehend why the waters must recede in the forthcoming era. Be sure to subscribe and watch this entire presentation, as the knowledge you gain will permanently alter your perspective on the scriptures and the ocean's mysteries. When the creation process commenced, and God commanded illumination into being, dividing the upper and lower oceans, another entity simultaneously emerged in those chasms. Holy Writ informs us that on the fifth day, the massive aquatic beasts and all mobile life in the seas were brought forth. Yet, a single entity distinguished itself from the multitude. This one was unique. It was fashioned not simply for aquatic movement or mere survival, but to personify the primal, untamable force of the initial disorder. This entity was christened Leviathan. Historical Hebrew literature references two colossal beasts formed that day: Behemoth, ruler of the earth, whose might resides in its core and whose tail swings like a massive tree trunk, and Leviathan, monarch of the oceans, whose presence causes the abyss to churn fiercely. These were not common fauna. They served as universal guardians, spectacular showcases of heavenly might, designed to instruct mankind that certain global powers respond solely to the divine creator, powers immune to all weaponry, incapable of entrapment, and entirely beyond human mastery. The biblical account of Job details the creature in frightful clarity. Its glorious scales are sealed together tightly, overlapping so completely that atmospheric pressure cannot pass through them. They adhere to one another and cannot be pulled apart. When it sneezes, light radiates. Its eyes resemble the first light of dawn. Flaming torches stream from its jaws, erupting with flying sparks. Plumes of smoke billow from its nasal passages like steam from an intensely heated vessel. Its exhalation sets coals ablaze, projecting fire from its maw. This text is not figurative language. It is a literal depiction, a factual account provided directly by the Almighty. But why? How could the maker of the cosmos engineer such a terrible beast? What reason would a benevolent God have for producing an entity synonymous with ruin? Ancient Jewish scholars pondered this enigma for ages and located the solution embedded within creation's inherent design. The purpose of Leviathan's existence is the disclosure of a fundamental truth regarding the divine. It proves that only the Almighty maintains supreme authority. It demonstrates that only He possesses the ability to craft that which humans cannot eliminate. Moreover, He is the sole arbiter of when turbulence is released or contained. This creature is not malicious. Rather, it is an instrument, an offensive power, a future prediction dormant until its destined moment. In the Talmud, it is written that God created male and female Leviathan on the fifth day. According to the Talmud, both a male and female Leviathan were brought into being on the fifth day. However, recognizing their immense strength and the potential havoc their progeny could wreak, God executed the female and saved her meat for the virtuous people in the future paradise. The male was allowed to survive, sequestered in the ocean's greatest depths, destined to wait until time's conclusion. It is held captive not by metal shackles, but by the Creator's utterance, controlled not through brute strength, but by heavenly command. The monster slumbers in the chasm, anticipating the dark. It shall ascend when the appointed moment arrives, when prophecies are fulfilled and the warnings are sounded. The prophet Isaiah refers to this future moment. On that forthcoming day, the Almighty, utilizing His powerful, magnificent blade, will exact retribution upon Leviathan, the escaping snake. Leviathan, the convoluted reptile. He will dispatch the ocean's watery creature. This is neither analogy nor abstract representation. It is the announcement of an ultimate conflict, a universal duel pitting the Maker against His handiwork, structure against disorder, the celestial seat against the watery void. Leviathan will ascend, and God will defeat it. The creature's life essence will purify the world for the subsequent era. Nevertheless, until this final moment, Leviathan lurks below the water, observing, ready, amusing itself within the ocean. As the psalmist noted, while oblivious vessels travel above, humankind constructs its civilizations along the coasts. People navigate their fleets across the vastness, convinced they have subdued the marine environment. Yet, underneath everything, where eternal obscurity reigns, the coiled ocean ruler rests. It maintains awareness of the objective for its creation, to illustrate that humans lack ultimate authority, to demonstrate that the planet is not human property, and to impress upon all who gaze at the sea that certain elements of this existence are reserved solely for the divine. Who is capable of opening its mouth? Its teeth are fearsome on all sides. These phrases were delivered directly by the Creator to Job after the upright man challenged the divine power. Following lengthy periods of misery, bereavement, agony, and silent pleas, Job insisted on receiving clarity. God responded, but offered no clarification for the affliction or vindication for the hardship. Instead, he directed Job's attention to Leviathan, the uncontrollable creature, and posed timeless questions. Could you retrieve Leviathan using a fishing line? Would you restrain its tongue with rope? Are you able to insert a bridle through its snout or puncture its jaw with a barbed tool? Clearly, the response is negative. No individual, no military force, and no implement created by human effort can pierce the beast's protective shell. Its lamellae are so dense and compressed that they exclude even atmospheric entry. Arrows prove useless in repelling it. Thrown stones are equivalent to mere chaff. Small projectiles are regarded as dry grass. It mocks any shaking lance. Iron feels like straw, and copper seems like decayed timber to it. Any sword strike is ineffective, as are the lance, the dart, and the pike. It treats iron as mere plant matter and bronze as crumbling material. This creature transcends simple organic biology. It is an archaic, fundamental element woven into the fundamental structure of the cosmos. Leviathan possesses a heart as impenetrable as granite. Indeed, as rigid as the bottom grinding stone. When it ascends, powerful men are terrified, overwhelmed by its violent surfacing. Its ventral area resembles jagged pottery shards. It leaves sharp tracks in the murky water. It causes the ocean depths to bubble like a vessel on the fire, transforming the sea into a frothing unguent. A luminous trail follows its movement, giving the impression that the abyss has turned hoary. No similar being exists anywhere on Earth. It was engineered utterly without trepidation. It observes all that is lofty. It reigns supreme over all who embody arrogance. This is the scriptural witness, the pronouncement made by the Creator to Job, witnessed by celestial beings and the entire universe. However, the narrative is not limited to the book of Job. The Psalms also mention Leviathan. Psalm 74 recalls the parting of the sea, where Leviathan's heads were shattered and delivered as sustenance for the inhabitants of the desert. Certain rabbinical scholars understand this passage as referencing the defeat of the Egyptians at the Sea of Reeds, where Pharaoh's forces met their end by drowning. The event itself serving as a representation of the massive serpent's severed heads. Conversely, other exegetes believe it forecasts a later incident, a prediction yet to be realized. Regardless of interpretation, the visual is unambiguous. Leviathan possesses many heads. It is not a singular monster, but an aggregate entity, a multi-headed deep-sea serpent, a serpentine beast that weaves its existence through both chronological history and prophetic foreshadowing. A contrasting portrayal emerges in Psalm 104. The vast, boundless sea contains countless swarming organisms, living beings both minor and immense. Vessels traverse these waters, and there is Leviathan, whom God constructed for recreation in that very place. In this context, the beast is not menacing. It stands as a marvelous entity, affirming divine design. It sports in the ocean like a youngster in an enclosure. He is not inherently wicked. He simply is massive, unstoppable, beyond human comprehension, and yet under the complete control of the one who made him. This dual nature is crucial. Leviathan embodies both an instrument of destruction and an object of marvel, representing both peril and magnificence. Its existence serves to amplify the Creator's splendor, whether manifested through its magnificence or its horrific power. The esoteric Jewish tradition further elucidates this enigma. The Zohar portrays Leviathan as a snake coiling around the entire planet, consuming its own caudal extremity, thus delineating the border between the material and the metaphysical planes. It serves as the custodian of the deep, safeguarding concealed knowledge preserved since the Earth's inception. Certain writings suggest that at the culmination of history, God will prepare a banquet for the redeemed, featuring Leviathan's meat as the primary dish. Its hide will then be used to canopy a magnificent sukkah, shelter, where the pious will reside eternally. This concept transcends simple mythical tales. It is a scriptural principle embedded within a story, a vow that the present era's instability will eventually be conquered, absorbed, and converted into divine favor. Yet, until that promised meal is readied, until the ultimate day dawns, Leviathan stays sequestered in the trenches. Its vision radiates like daybreak. Its exhalation sets the surrounding water alight. Its locomotion results in the ocean foaming violently. Antique mariners dreaded specific maritime zones where the water inexplicably reached a rolling boil, where sudden vortices appeared, or where ships mysteriously vanished. They were unaware that their routes passed directly over the dominion of the aquatic monarch. They did not realize that something in the frigid, dark ocean depths monitored them, anticipated, and recalled its genesis and its predetermined mission. That celestial mandate, recorded in the heavens and protected in sacred writings, is still pending completion. Job was characterized as honorable, faultless, and devout, a man who revered the Creator and avoided malice. His family included 7 sons and 3 daughters. His vast estate comprised 7,000 sheep, 3,000 dromedaries, 500 pairs of cattle, 500 female asses, and numerous servants. He was the most affluent individual among the Eastern peoples. His existence was fortunate, his reputation esteemed, and his piety untainted. Then, in a span of 24 hours, every asset was stripped away. His offspring were murdered. His fortune was decimated. His body became afflicted with painful boils from head to toe. Nevertheless, Job never blasphemed God, nor relinquished his devotion. However, he did insist upon obtaining explanations. Across 37 sections, Job and his companions argued over the source of his misfortunes. His friends alleged concealed transgression, maintaining that the divine exclusively chastises the unrighteous, implying that Job had somehow earned his destiny. Yet, Job was confident in his innocence, his conscience, and his uprightness. Consequently, he appealed to the heavens, calling for a direct encounter with the Supreme Being. He sought clarification, recompense, and a divine accounting for his tribulation. In chapter 38, the Creator finally addressed him. Instead of offering rationale, expressing regret, or providing solace, God challenged Job with queries, riddles designed to demolish Job's arrogance and expose the immense gulf separating humanity from its Creator. "Where exactly were you when I established the planet's base?" God inquired. "Have you given directives to the sunrise at any point in your life? Have the entrances to the realm of the dead been shown to you? Are you capable of fastening the Pleiades constellation or untying Orion's band? Can you dispatch bolts of electricity and receive their acknowledgement?" Through a continuous cascade of inquiries about the cosmos, God displayed the wonders of the universe, not to ridicule Job, but to subjugate him. The message was clear. Comprehension is not guaranteed, accountability is not required, and the Maker functions on a level of scope and intelligence inaccessible to human intellect. Subsequently, across chapters 40 and 41, God directed Job's focus toward 2 specific beings, Behemoth and Leviathan. "Behold Behemoth, created contemporaneously with you, It consumes vegetation like a bull. Its might is concentrated in its pelvic region, and its force resides in its abdominal tissue. Its tail sways like a large coniferous tree. The sinews of its legs are densely interwoven. Its skeletal structure resembles bronze scaffolding, and its ribs are like iron rods. It represents the pinnacle of my creative acts. Only its maker can confront it with a weapon. This was the terrestrial beast, enormous, insurmountable, a tangible tribute to celestial dominance. Yet, God proceeded to discuss a far more formidable entity, one residing not on the ground, but in the abyss, an entity that made Behemoth seem docile. Leviathan. Are you able to haul in Leviathan using a fishing implement? God questioned. Or can you ensnare its tongue with a descending cord? Is it possible to insert a rope through its nasal passage or spear its jaw with a barbed tool? Will it plead with you excessively? Will it address you gently? Can you establish a pact with it? Would you utilize it as an eternal domestic animal? Could you interact with it as you would a pet bird? Or secure it on a leash for your female servants? The inquiries mounted, underscoring the undeniable reality. Job was utterly incapable of performing any of these feats. No human could. Leviathan submits only to the divine. It acknowledges no authority save its fashioner. And if Job could not control a single creature of the sea, how could he presume to question the one who made the sea itself? The Almighty elaborated. Its armored plates are its arrogance, sealed meticulously tight. The proximity of one plate to the next prevents atmospheric entry. They are fused together, adhering inseparably. Its exhalations illuminate the surroundings, and its gaze resembles the breaking of dawn. Incandescent torches emerge from its oral cavity, projecting flashes of flame. Vapor emanates from its nose, like steam escaping a boiling vessel stoked by reeds. Its respiration sets fuel aflame, and fire bursts from its maw. Power resides in its throat, and devastation precedes it. The layers of its skin are bound together, unyielding and immovable upon its body. Its core is as tough as rock, rigid as the bottom grinding wheel. This was not literary flourish. It was a metaphysical unveiling. It was the divine removing the curtain, granting Job a window into realities exceeding human perception. When Leviathan elevates itself, the powerful fear. Its violent movements drive them to panic. If a blade connects, it is ineffective, as are spears, arrows, or pikes. It considers metallic ore insignificant and copper equivalent to decayed lumber. Missiles cannot force its retreat. Projectiles from slingshots are mere debris to it. Small shafts are dismissed as hay. It ridicules the menacing approach of hand-thrown spears. The underside of the beast resembles sharp ceramic fragments. It leaves jagged trails in the sludge. It causes the depths to roil intensely, turning the ocean into a churning vessel of liquid. A luminous path marks its departure, leading one to imagine the ocean has turned silvery white. Nothing on this world parallels this being, which was fashioned entirely without apprehension. It observes every high place. It rules over all the haughty. At this point, Job grasped the message. He comprehended the reason for this divine display, not to shame or devastate him, but to restore perspective, shatter the assumption of command, and demonstrate that the cosmos is not centered on human hardship or interrogation. Job had sought clarity as though he were God's peer, assuming the authority to evaluate the Creator. However, upon being confronted with Leviathan, an individual entity he could neither fathom nor master, Job accepted reality. If he lacked the ability to manage a single marine beast, how could he possibly address the complexities of heavenly equity? If piercing Leviathan's hide was impossible, how could he penetrate the divine counsels? Consequently, Job acknowledged his error, not for moral failing, but for his hubris, not for transgression, but for overconfidence. He covered his lips, bowed low, and declared, "I previously knew you through hearsay, but now my own vision perceives you. Thus, I despise my former conduct and express remorse in the traditional signs of sorrow." The narrative in Job established Leviathan as a contemporary entity, dwelling in the deep, unassailable by humans, accountable solely to God. In contrast, the prophet Isaiah unveiled a distinct, more ominous perspective, forecasting not the past or present, but the culmination of time, a day of settlement, a decisive battle between the celestial realm and the infernal depths. Isaiah 27:1 states, "On that forthcoming day, the Eternal, wielding his mighty heavy blade, will exact retribution upon Leviathan, the escaping snake, Leviathan, the coiling serpent. He will execute the sea-dwelling creature." This passage is not expository writing. It is prophetic declaration, an announcement of ultimate conflict. The phrase, "in that day," resonates with eternal significance. It recurs across prophetic literature, consistently referring to a single juncture, the day of the eternal, the time of divine assessment, when God intervenes in human affairs with irreversible resolution and zeal. This is the moment when all concealed matters are disclosed, all injustices rectified, and every adversary vanquished. Isaiah utilizes this phrase to situate his prediction temporally, not in the era of Job or the prophet himself, but in a future, predetermined instant when divine forbearance ceases and the Almighty's indignation is released. At that time, Leviathan will not escape scrutiny. It will not continue its concealment. God will personally pursue the creature. The way Isaiah describes the beast is terrifying. He labels it Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, and Leviathan, the twisted serpent. These are two epithets implying a dual identity. The designation fleeing serpent implies velocity and avoidance, a tendency to evade conflict. The twisted serpent suggests deceitfulness, something devious and convoluted, masking its actual composition. While some academics view these as distinct beings, others consider them two facets of a single monster. Regardless, the core meaning is uniform. Leviathan is not just a physical monster. He is a symbol, a representation of chaos, rebellion, and everything that opposes the order of God. And when the final day comes, every form of chaos will be brought to heel. The instrument of the Lord's judgment is characterized as merciless, powerful, and robust. This is no mortal armament, no alloy hammered by human hands. It is the divine utterance materialized as condemnation. The very command that ushered the cosmos into being will decree annihilation for those who resist holiness. The vital force breathed into Adam will be the force that extracts Leviathan's life. The prophet portrays a fatal decree, not a military engagement. There is no struggle, no contest, no uncertainty. God will deliver retribution. God will kill. The outcome is already decided. The sentence is already written. And the demon of the deep, which has haunted mankind's collective unconscious for countless generations, will be instantaneously subdued. But the question remains: why must Leviathan perish? What offense warrants this fate? After all, It is a being fashioned by God, existing through heavenly intent, merely amusing itself in the ocean as per the psalm. He is not inherently evil, he simply is. The explanation is rooted not in the creature's behavior, but in its symbolic meaning. In the Bible, the ocean represents disorder, instability, and opposition to the divine blueprint. The snake in the garden, the Revelation's dragon, the monster surfacing from the waves. These metaphors are interconnected. They all reinforce the ancient principle. A specific element within creation must be dominated, vanquished, and eliminated before the renewed heavens and earth can be successfully instituted. Isaiah's prediction is corroborated by other prophetic voices. Ezekiel refers to the immense lizard positioned within his waterways. Jeremiah mentions the aquatic Leviathan that has consumed Jerusalem. Daniel witnesses colossal entities ascending from the ocean, depicting earthly kingdoms as agents of disruption. Universally, the central theme persists. The divine will assess, the divine will prevail, and the divine will install his sovereignty by eradicating all opposition. Leviathan transcends the category of a mere ocean beast. It represents the concentration of every power that has ever challenged the celestial seat. And its destruction is not just an event. It is a fundamental need, a universal prerequisite for the ultimate completion of destiny. Early rabbinic scholars affirmed that eliminating Leviathan would signify the concluding action preceding the era of the Messiah. Tradition holds that the Messiah's arrival will initiate a conflict with the powers of disorder, culminating in his triumph. At the lavish feast prepared for the righteous, the meat of Leviathan shall be the main course. Furthermore, the hide of this creature will be utilized in building the sacred dwelling place for the saints. His demise signals the transition from the ancient era to a fresh beginning. This concept is rooted not in myth, but in eschatology. It establishes the scriptural structure for how the ultimate conclusion of existence is understood. That culmination starts with a mighty and severe blade, the very sword of the Lord, slicing the ocean, penetrating the impenetrable hide of the sea beast, and bringing the dominion of the ocean king to a close. Consequently, we anticipate. We look forward to that specific day, awaiting the instant when the skies part and the Creator's voice booms over the planet. We anticipate the time when the deep relinquishes the deceased within it, and the void frees those imprisoned. We await the ultimate clash, creator versus creation, structure versus anarchy, the celestial seat of power versus the terrestrial serpent. Isaiah witnessed this scene and committed it to writing. He enshrined this vision in holy texts for all succeeding ages. On that destined day, the Lord shall mete out justice to Leviathan. That same day will see the destruction of the coiling serpent, the silencing of the deep, and the eventual arrival of tranquility upon the earth. However, Leviathan was not God's sole creation. On the fifth day, while filling the oceans with living things, he simultaneously made ready the land for future events. Then, on the sixth day, preceding the formation of humanity from dust, God manifested Behemoth, the most massive being ever to traverse the planet, a creature whose mere presence challenges conventional biological understanding. Just as Leviathan governed the oceans, Behemoth was destined to dominate the dry ground. If the former personified abyssal anarchy, the latter represented the fundamental solidity of the globe. They collectively constitute a complementary set, a celestial pairing, serving as dual testaments to the Creator's supreme authority. No mortal can hope to contend with these two entities, They are twin guardians positioned at the final threshold. The account in Job presents Behemoth directly preceding the mention of Leviathan. Behold Behemoth, which I created alongside you. He consumes vegetation like a bovine. Observe that his might resides in his loins, and his force is concentrated in the muscles of his belly. He swings his tail like a massive cedar tree. The tendons of his upper legs are powerfully intertwined. His skeletal structure resembles metallic rods of bronze, and his ribs are like wrought iron bars. He represents the pinnacle of God's creations. Only his maker has the capacity to draw close with the punishing blade. For hundreds of years, experts have argued over the creature Behemoth represents, positing possibilities such as the hippopotamus, the elephant, or the rhinoceros. Yet none of these options align with the detailed depiction. A tail resembling a cedar, a skeleton made of bronze, and being the foremost of God's works. This is clearly not a mundane animal. It is wholly unique. Further specific information is supplied by early Jewish writings. The Talmud and the Midrash establish Behemoth as the sovereign over all terrestrial beasts, mirroring Leviathan's rule over the ocean. Like Leviathan, Behemoth was originally fashioned as a male and a female pair. However, recognizing their inherent strength, God understood that if they reproduced, the world would be overwhelmed. Consequently, the female behemoth was slain and stored for future use. The male was concealed, residing in a domain named Duodon, where 1,000 mountains continuously yield his sustenance. He grazes on vegetation from 1,000 elevations, drinking from a current originating in Eden. There he patiently remains, just as Leviathan waits in the deep until the predestined moment for both of them to emerge. But what was the initial motivation for their creation? Why bring into existence two beings of such magnitude, only to withdraw them? Why didn't God simply eradicate them once their function was complete? The resolution to this puzzle is found in the equilibrium of divine fairness and compassion. These monsters were not brought forth to serve as adversaries. Instead, their purpose was illustrative, acting as tangible evidence that the Almighty maintains absolute strength, governance, and control over every dimension of the cosmos. Behemoth verifies that the Earth, regardless of its seeming permanence and rigidity, operates entirely subject to God's will. Leviathan, conversely, demonstrates that the ocean, even in its immensity and mystery, is similarly subordinate to divine command. They collectively represent the comprehensive scope of the established universe. Their sustained survival serves to remind us that only the Creator possesses the ability to abolish what He has constructed. The tradition of prophecy associates these formidable entities with the closing era of history. Supplementary information is available in the Book of Enoch, a text frequently studied during the Second Temple period. Enoch received revelations concerning the ultimate judgment. Within these prophecies, he observed a pair of colossal creatures: Behemoth, the male, residing in an unseen wasteland located east of the Edenic Garden, and Leviathan, the female, inhabiting the oceanic void situated over the water sources. Enoch learned that they were divided during the creation's 5th day to prevent their shared existence from causing the destruction of the planet. Furthermore, he was informed that they are intended to serve as nourishment for the chosen on the day of final reckoning. This is not incidental information. Rather, it is crucial theological structure. The purpose behind the existence of these monsters far surpasses their corporeal nature. The idea of the messianic feast is a recurring element within Jewish eschatological thought. Lore suggests that upon the establishment of the Messiah's reign, a magnificent banquet will be provided for those deemed righteous. The centerpiece of this culinary celebration will be the meat of both Behemoth and Leviathan. This imagery holds significance beyond mere metaphor. It signifies the absolute and decisive conquest of both anarchy and mortality. Over the course of human experience, these tandem forces, the unrestrained ocean and the savage land, have claimed untold numbers of lives. They have leveled metropolises and brought down vast kingdoms. They are responsible for widespread hunger, inundation, seismic activity, and severe weather. Yet, in the subsequent era, these beasts will be overpowered, defeated, and eaten. Their immense strength will be converted into sustenance for the redeemed. The fear they once instilled will instead become a demonstration of the Lord's ultimate victory. Psalm 74 offers a preview of this coming truth. By your might, you cleaved the waters. You shattered the multiple heads of the sea monsters in the depths. You smashed the heads of Leviathan into fragments and offered him as sustenance for the inhabitants of the desert. The reference to heads in the plural form is noteworthy. It implies that Leviathan might embody several entities, or perhaps signify various chaotic powers that must collectively be vanquished. A number of commentators view this passage as relating to the Exodus event, where God divided the Red Sea and overcame Pharaoh's military. Conversely, other interpretations regard it as an oracle predicting the ultimate vanquishing of wickedness. Regardless of the perspective, the visual meaning is unambiguous. That which formerly jeopardized the Lord's people with destruction will ultimately be consumed. The source of former dread will be transformed into celebratory food. The emblem of mortality will become the essential element of unending existence. Thus, Behemoth and Leviathan remain linked, divided geographically by terrain and ocean, yet sharing a common destiny. They function as the markers enclosing creation, the primordial monsters shaped in the beginning, maintained across history, and scheduled for manifestation at the conclusion. Their existence confirms that the divine blueprint stretches from boundless past into limitless future. They attest that no element within the cosmos is accidental. Every being, every peak, every liquid droplet, and every gust of air fulfills an intended role within the overarching plan. When the concluding narrative is inscribed, when the ultimate fanfare echoes and the final restriction is removed, these powerful animals will appear one final time, serving not as foes of the divine, but as vessels of his majesty, and not as dangers to mankind, but as offerings to the saved. Their ultimate demise will usher in a new reality utterly devoid of disorder. The adversary has been present since time immemorial in the form of the serpent. Before moral transgression contaminated existence, before the first life was taken by death, and prior to mankind's expulsion from grace in the Garden of Eden, this serpentine creature existed. Though not explicitly named Leviathan, it was a snake, deceptive, sly, and corrupted both physically and spiritually. It addressed Eve persuasively, sowing uncertainty that blossomed into mankind's most severe calamity. Is it true that God prohibited you from eating the fruit of any tree in the garden? This query, seemingly harmless, contained underlying venom. It directly undermined the Almighty's command. It cast aspersions on his benevolence. The suggestion was that the Maker was deliberately denying his creatures something profitable. Once Eve accepted the premise, and Adam complied, divine judgment fell, and the curse descended upon the serpent. The Lord addressed the snake directly. Due to your actions, You are more penalized than all livestock and every wild animal. You will travel on your abdomen, consuming soil for the duration of your life. Furthermore, I will introduce hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her descendant. He will shatter your skull, and you will injure his ankle. This was more than a mere consequence for a creature. It was an apocalyptic foretelling, a statement of ongoing conflict destined to encompass all recorded time. The snake would inflict injury upon mankind. Through a preordained descendant, humanity would retaliate, resulting eventually in the crushing of the serpent's head. This declaration constitutes the proto-evangelium, the initial assurance of deliverance. The narrative opens with a snake. Across the sacred writings, serpentine imagery recurs persistently, inevitably associated with disorder, trickery, and defiance of the divine. Isaiah refers to Leviathan specifically as both the elusive serpent and the winding serpent. In the Revelation, the dragon is clearly named, the ancient snake, known as the devil and Satan, who misleads the entire world. The linkage is conclusive. Leviathan is more than just a marine animal. He functions as a metaphor, an actual form given to an intangible truth. He stands for the primal foe who has resisted the Almighty since creation. He is the adversary, the trickster, the beast that endeavors to consume the faithful. And consequently, Leviathan awaits judgment in the final days, just as the garden serpent was penalized. Early cultures across the Near East readily grasped this symbolic representation. Canaanite traditions featured Lotan, a seven-headed aquatic creature symbolizing disorder, which was conquered by the deity Baal. Similarly, Babylonian myths centered on Tiamat, the primeval oceanic dragon who battled the divine council and was ultimately killed by Marduk. These narratives do not represent the genesis of the scriptural Leviathan. Instead, they are distorted reflections of a fundamental reality, a reality preceding all established human societies. Before structure existed, disruption reigned. Prior to illumination, obscurity prevailed. Before existence, there was the void. And the Almighty, the genuine and singular God, subdued that chaos not through conflict, but by decree. He articulated his will, and it was accomplished. He partitioned the oceans. He established fixed parameters for the marine domain. He brought Leviathan into being and subjected him to divine rule. However, the underlying symbolism extends further. The snake signifies not only malevolence outside of us, but also decay within. The serpentine movement, characterized by twisting and winding, mirrors how transgression operates in the soul of man. Sin does not declare its presence openly. It avoids direct assault. It creeps and hisses subtly. It gradually encircles the consciousness, tightening its grip until the afflicted individual cannot distinguish veracity from falsehood. This exact process occurred in the garden. It recurs in the spirit of every person who deliberately abandons the divine. The physical presence of the serpent is unnecessary. Its effect is evident in every rebellious action, every rejection of heavenly control, and every insistence upon human self-rule above God's directives. Leviathan, being the massive marine snake, personifies this truth globally. The prophet Ezekiel employs Leviathan's figure to illustrate the downfall of political entities. In chapter 29, the Almighty addresses Pharaoh, Egypt's ruler. "Look, I oppose you, Pharaoh, sovereign of Egypt, the massive reptile resting within your waterways, who boasts, 'This river belongs to me. I constructed it for myself.' However, I will insert barbs into your mouth, causing the fish in your streams to cling to your plates of armor. I will drag you forth from the heart of your channels, and every fish from your streams will be stuck to your hide. I will abandon you in the barren lands, you and the entirety of your river's fish. You shall perish on the uncovered ground, remaining uncollected and unburied. I have designated you as sustenance for the land animals and the sky's fowl. In this context, Leviathan stands for human self-importance, the haughtiness of imperial power, and the mistaken belief that mankind can define its fate independently of the Creator. This motif reappears in chapter 32, as Ezekiel delivers a subsequent prophecy concerning Egypt. Mortal, utter a mournful song about Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and declare to him, "Among the nations, you resemble a youthful lion, yet you are like a creature of the deep, plunging into your streams, stirring the waters with your limbs, and contaminating their currents." The symbolism is crystal clear. Leviathan is more than an animal. He represents an essence, a dynamic, a governing doctrine of defiance that appears in persons, states, and ruling structures opposing the celestial authority. Consequently, as God swore to destroy the actual Leviathan, he likewise guarantees the eradication of every embodiment of that rebellious spirit. Any realm established on arrogance shall fail. Every regime built upon falsehoods will disintegrate. Any structure elevating itself beyond divine understanding will be nullified. This explains the profound importance of Leviathan's ultimate demise. It signals not merely the expiration of a behemoth, but the conclusion of an age, shutting the book on a history that commenced in Eden and will culminate in the Inferno. The deceiving snake from Eden will be overthrown. The revelation dragon who chased the woman will be restrained. The coiling beast that has inflicted fear upon mankind for 6 millennia will be extinguished by God's own blade. When this event occurs, when the skull is definitively shattered, fulfilling the Genesis covenant, the condemnation will be lifted. The historic antagonism will cease. The conflict that has persisted since creation's dawn will conclude, and the faithful will emerge triumphant, achieving victory not through personal might, but through the strength of Him who dominated disorder before the planet was formed. In Holy Writ, the oceanic domain is always consequential. It is not simply a vast body of water covering land, nor is it merely a navigable waterway or a natural yield to exploit. The sea represents an arena of enigma, peril, and divine sentencing. It is the territory where anarchy yet persists, where the division between structure and disarray becomes blurred, and where God's opposing entities are confined, though not yet annihilated. From the first book of the Bible to the last, the ocean continuously serves as the backdrop for universal conflict, the theater where the unfolding saga of salvation takes place. And situated centrally on that stage, twisting in the abyss, awaiting the appointed time, is Leviathan. At the very start, the world lacked shape and emptiness reigned, with obscurity blanketing the surface of the deep. Concurrently, the divine spirit was suspended above the waters. Water predated solid ground, and the deep existed before illumination. The original Hebrew term employed is tehom, referring to the primeval void or abyss. This term is also found in other ancient Near Eastern literature when describing the disorderly liquids present before the universe was formed. However, the scriptures draw a vital difference. These waters were not deities. They did not exist independently. They originated from God and were subject to His command from the moment they came into being. When the Almighty issued His decree, the waters submitted. Let an expanse appear amidst the waters, separating the waters from the remaining waters. God caused division. He enforced structure. He instituted limits, thereby containing the disorder, though not eradicating it entirely. Across the Old Testament canon, the ocean persistently symbolizes danger and volatility. When the Hebrew people found themselves facing the Red Sea, with the Egyptian military approaching, the waters represented certain doom. Yet, the Lord cleaved the ocean. He forged a passage through the turbulence. He converted the means intended for their ruin into the route for their deliverance. When Pharaoh's forces attempted pursuit, the waters converged again, drowning them completely. The sea transformed into a burial ground, an area of divine retribution, proving that what the Creator unseals, no human can shut. Conversely, what God seals, no mortal can unlock. The Exodus served as more than merely a recorded incident. It mirrored the creation process itself. The Lord, yet again, tamed the waves. He re-established structure out of disorder. He demonstrated once more his unique supremacy. The Book of Psalms abounds with depictions of God dominating the deep. You govern the ocean's ferocity. When its crests swell, you silence them. You crushed Rahab into fragments, treating him as one slaughtered. You dispersed your foes using your powerful strength. The ocean thunders loudly, yet the Almighty possesses superior power. The breakers batter the shore, yet he remains above them. Rahab, an alternate title for the sea beast, is annihilated by celestial force. The abyss offers no concealment from him. The void cannot withstand his command. Even natural phenomena, including the powerful Leviathan, must yield to the Maker. Nevertheless, the water persists. It has not been eliminated. Rather, it is contained. It is held in check by divine utterance, maintained strictly within its designated parameters, anticipating the moment when those restrictions will be lifted and the ultimate conflict will commence. Job comprehended this underlying struggle. During his tribulation, he questioned, "Am I the ocean or a coiled sea monster that you must place a sentinel over me?" He perceived himself to be monitored, limited, and checked by God, much like the ocean itself is bound. The Lord's response to Job validated this fact. Who was it who enclosed the ocean behind barriers when it erupted from the earth like a birth? When I clothed it with storm clouds and bundled it in profound shadow? When I established its maximum extent and secured it with bars and gates, declaring, "You may advance to this point, yet never beyond it. Here your arrogant waves must recede." The ocean possesses finite borders. Disorder is contained by parameters, which are imposed not by physical laws, but by heavenly ordinance. The waters submit involuntarily. Leviathan remains confined to the depths because it is a direct command from God. The instant that constraint is withdrawn, utter catastrophe will ensue. The prophet Jonah personally encountered the sea's horror after attempting to escape the Lord's notice aboard a vessel headed toward Tarshish. God unleashed a ferocious gale upon the water, causing such a violent storm that the ship was on the verge of splintering. The mariners desperately prayed to their respective deities. They jettisoned the ship's contents. They drew straws to ascertain the source of the disaster. When Jonah was selected, he admitted, "I am a Judean, and I worship the sovereign of the heavens, who created both the ocean and the continent." He then provided the sole remedy. "Lift me up and toss me into the water. The ocean will subsequently quiet, as I am aware that this severe storm is my doing. Upon finally complying, as Jonah disappeared under the surface, the waters instantly stopped their fury. The Lord then appointed a giant aquatic beast to consume Jonah, not Leviathan, but still a monster from the deep, reaffirming that divine clemency persists even amid chastisement. This motif is carried forward into the New Testament accounts. Jesus traversed the water's surface, thereby establishing his mastery over the disorder that frightened his followers. He silenced the tempest using a single command, and the gusts and swells submitted. His disciples questioned, "Who exactly is this man, since even the air and the waves comply with him?" The conclusion was evident. He is the sovereign master of all that was made. He is the one who defined the ocean's limits at the start of time. He is the one confining Leviathan. He is the one who shall ultimately pronounce the decisive statement, concluding the era of disorder. In the Revelation, the deep assumes its concluding function. John witnesses a monster emerging from the water, marked by 10 horns and 7 heads. He observes all deceased people, high and low, presenting themselves before the Lord, for the ocean released the corpses held within it. Subsequently, during the revelation concerning the renewed cosmos, John chronicles the most astonishing particularity. "Then I beheld a new sky and a new planet, because the former sky and the former planet had vanished, and the sea was gone." The absence of the ocean signifies the supreme triumph, the final overcoming, the thorough and absolute removal of disorder from the structure of creation. In the ensuing epic, Leviathan will not exist. There will be no void. There will be no profound depths concealing unidentified horrors. The world will be free of gales, maritime disasters, fatal submersions, and dread of the unseen depths. The maritime realm, which has served as a metaphor for mortality and confusion from the start, shall be eliminated, substituted instead by a crystal-pure river of existence, issuing forth from the seat of God and the Lamb. The zone of conflict will be transformed into an Eden. The area of fighting will become a haven, and the faithful will reside in perpetual serenity, safe from the snake's threat, the dragon's menace, and the panic once induced by the coiled monster who commanded the abyss. Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more, because God removed him. These terse statements in Genesis 5 offer scant indication of the deep revelations experienced by a man who peered past the limitations of earthly reality. Enoch did not succumb to death. He was transported, ascending to the divine domain while still corporeal. During his passage through the celestial secrets, he received prophetic insight, much of which remains outside the established Bible texts. Yet his documents, maintained by the primitive church and later found again in Ethiopia, unveil hidden truths that clarify the most obscure aspects of scriptural prophecy. Central among these discoveries is the destiny awaiting Leviathan and Behemoth, the mighty duo reserved for the final reckoning. Chapter 60 of the Book of Enoch records the prophet's description of a revelation granted during his ascent into heaven. He observed a pair of beasts, colossal in stature and strength, which were divided when the universe was formed. On that specific day, 2 monstrous creatures shall be segregated. The female named Leviathan, designated to inhabit the maritime depths above the sources of the oceans, and the male named Behemoth, who rests his chest upon a desolate region called Duodain, situated eastward of the garden where the chosen and virtuous reside. This account was not fabrication. This discovery was staggering. Enoch was being shown where these beasts, widely assumed to be mythical or long dead, truly resided. Yet, they exist. They are alive, anticipating their moment. Enoch attributes the division of these monsters to a necessary act of God's kindness. I implored the other angel to demonstrate the power of these creatures, detailing how they were divided in a single day, one flung into the deep ocean trenches and the other onto the arid desert land. Great power. The celestial messenger clarified to Enoch that had these two beings remained together, their proliferation would have led to their progeny devastating the entire world. The earth could not nourish them. The seas could not contain them. Their presence alone jeopardized the order of the cosmos. Therefore, the Almighty, in His ultimate wisdom, executed the female of each species and retained only the males. One in the marine depths, one was in the desolate waste, both confined, both held back, both preserved for a final function, only to be disclosed at the final judgment. But what is the reason for this? Why preserve them at all? Why were they not simply annihilated once their role in proving God's sovereignty to Job was concluded? The answer emerges further along in Enoch's prophecy. On that designated day, two monstrous entities will be portioned out as a meal. The female creature, Leviathan, resides in the ocean abysses above the water sources, while the male beast, Behemoth, navigates the hidden desert on his chest. His name was Duodene, situated in the eastern region of the Garden of Eden, the habitation of the chosen and the just. And I implored the other angel again to disclose the might of these gargantuans and the means by which they were set apart on the same day, one committed to the deep trenches of the sea, the other to the barren desert. This event is known as the Messianic Feast, the great dinner for the justified, the recompense for those who persevere until the end. This notion resonates throughout the entirety of Jewish end times writings. The tractate Baba-Batra in the Talmud elaborates extensively on this forthcoming celebration. The Holy One, praised be He, will prepare a lavish dinner for the righteous using Leviathan's flesh. As the scriptures state, the assembly will partake of him, and God will distribute and trade the remaining parts of Leviathan in the marketplaces of the holy city, Jerusalem, just as it is inscribed, "Shall they fill his hide with sharp hooks." The justified will dine sumptuously, the loyal will be sustained, and the creature that once instilled terror will transform into a spring of sustenance and bliss. This represents the supreme reversal. The hunter turns into the harvested food. The dread becomes a clear proof. The giant monster is the very dish consumed. Yet, Enoch's prophetic insight extends beyond this. He is also given a view of the containment area for these monsters. The deep ocean chasm is not merely a symbolic expression. It is an actual place, deeper than instruments can measure, more opaque than human sight can penetrate. A region where immense pressure would crush any vessel, where light is absent, where the temperature is absolute zero. Despite this impossible darkness, Leviathan maintains residence there. He is neither deceased nor inactive, but alive, observing, awaiting, exhaling fire that transforms the surrounding water into vapor. His eyes radiate brightness, even within the profoundest murkiness. Concurrently, on the land, in a desolate region no person has ever discovered, Behemoth wanders, feeding on the yield of countless mountains, drinking from hidden flowing streams, a monarch without a realm, a behemoth without competition, isolated in the immensity, yet never forgotten by his creator. Enoch was also shown the angelic beings who monitor these animals, guardians assigned to ensure that neither Behemoth nor Leviathan depart their designated locations before the destined hour. These are not the disobedient guardians who sinned during Noah's time. These are holy messengers, loyal servants of the Most High, posted at the entrance of the abyss and the limits of the hidden desert. Their assignment is specific: to confine the beasts until the order for their release is issued. And when that divine decree arrives, when the seals are broken and the horns announce the time, these angels will withdraw. The bindings will drop, the borders will vanish, and Leviathan and Behemoth will emerge from their hidden custody. They will appear not as God's foes, but as tools for his final design, not as insurrectionists, but as subjects, fulfilling the destiny for which they were conceived before the earth was made. The texts attributed to Enoch were omitted from the Hebrew canon, yet they enjoyed widespread readership and reverence during the Second Temple era. Jesus utilized quotes from Enoch. The apostles made references to it. The apostle Jude references it directly within his letter. The initial fathers of the church regarded it as sacred scripture. And even though it was subsequently excluded from most Christian Bibles, its impact persisted. Its prophecies shaped the eschatological thinking of both Judaism and Christianity, and its account of Leviathan and Behemoth established a critical bridge linking the creation narratives in Genesis, the wisdom literature found in Job, the prophetic statements of Isaiah, and the ultimate unveiling recorded by John. These powerful beings are not minor details. They are not merely symbolic embellishments. They are vital actors in the cosmic drama, held in reserve, maintained for the conclusion, anticipating the instant when heaven mandates action. A great celebration approaches, a banquet unlike anything human history has ever witnessed. It is not merely a gathering of rulers and nobles, though royalty will attend. It is not solely a tribute to terrestrial triumph, though triumph will be its core theme. This is the festival that was assured before the existence of time. The meal orchestrated by the Almighty Himself for those who stayed loyal throughout the long darkness of human misery. The messianic dinner, the wedding feast of the Lamb, the time when the justified will take their seats at the table of the Most High and consume the meat of Leviathan. This description is not metaphorical. This is not a comparison. This is the promised reward spoken of by prophets, documented by scribes, and eagerly anticipated by the devout for millennia. Yet, before the feast, a slaying must occur. The demise of the creature that has instilled terror in the oceans since creation. The tradition of the messianic banquet is deeply embedded in Jewish texts. In the Talmud, Rabbi Yoshan proclaims that in the future, the Holy One will construct a sukkah, a temporary dwelling, from the hide of Leviathan for those who are righteous. For those with lesser spiritual standing, the skin will constitute the boundaries of their residence. For those with higher merit, it will become clothing they wear. Furthermore, the radiance emitted from Leviathan's hide will light up the coming age. This signifies the absolute metamorphosis. The entity that represented fear and disarray will transform into the wellspring of illumination and elegance. Its termination will not be futile. Its physical form will not be discarded. Every segment of it will fulfill a sacred function. Its flesh for sustenance, its skin for covering, its entire being justified and repurposed for the glory of the divine. However, a massacre must precede the celebration. Isaiah 27:1 declares it clearly. In that era, the Lord, utilizing his great, severe, and mighty sword, will mete out punishment to Leviathan, the swiftly moving serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, and he will kill the marine monster that is in the sea. This event is not a contest. It is a divine sentencing. There will be no fight, no struggle of dominance, no ambiguity regarding the conclusion. God will issue the command, and Leviathan will expire. The Lord's sword, representing his authority, his utterance, his unconquerable will puncture the scales that no man-made weapon could breach, and the king of the sea will fall. Not in surrender, for he was never truly defiant, but in completion, his destiny finished, his part in the cosmic play concluded. The prophet Ezekiel provides us with a subsequent view of this moment. In chapter 39, following the vanquishing of Gog and Magog, after the destruction of the world's armies, God proclaims that he will establish his magnificence among the nations. A monumental sacrifice will be made, a tremendous feast of meat for the planet's birds and beasts. Speak to all types of birds and to every wild creature. Assemble yourselves and come, gather from every direction to my sacrificial dinner, which I am arranging for you, a vast sacrificial meal on the highlands of Israel, so that you may consume flesh and drink blood. You shall feast on the flesh of powerful men and drink the blood of the earth's rulers. This serves as the introduction to the messianic dinner, the initial course where God's adversaries become provisions for creation itself. If this is the fate of the terrestrial armies, how much more magnificent will be the banquet when Leviathan himself is served? The Talmud vividly describes how this meal will be prepared. When Leviathan is executed, the righteous will convene. Some sources suggest the feast will occur in Jerusalem. Others propose it will be in the Garden of Eden, restored to its pristine condition. Still others state it will be in a metaphysical plane, a dimension where heaven and earth intertwine. Regardless of the venue, the celebration will be spectacular. Leviathan's meat will be portioned among the loyal. Those who endured persecution will receive the first portions. Individuals who sacrificed their lives for God's name will be esteemed guests. Those who resisted temptation, who adhered strictly to the Torah, who maintained faith in the promises even when hope seemed lost, will be seated at the table and feast on the very monster that symbolized everything they struggled against. Disorder will transform into sustenance. Anxiety will become fulfillment. Mortality will become eternal existence, and placed next to Leviathan on that same table will be Behemoth, the land beast, slain alongside the aquatic monster. Together, they will supply sufficient provisions for all who are redeemed across every generation. The Talmud states that the beverage served at this gathering will be wine that has been aging in its grapes since the initial 6 days of creation. Wine untouched by decay. Wine carrying the true flavor of Eden. The bread provided will be manna, not the temporary supply from the wilderness, but the perpetual manna mentioned by Moses, the hidden nourishment promised in the book of Revelation to those who emerge victorious. This will be a meal that satisfies not only the physical body, but also the spirit. A feast that signals the cessation of famine, the cessation of thirst, and the cessation of yearning. A great festivity that universally declares that the Almighty has triumphed, that his followers are protected, and that the conflict has concluded. However, this banquet surpasses simple consumption. It serves as an affirmation, a declaration, a universal announcement that the era of confusion has ended and the period of tranquility has commenced. For countless millennia, Leviathan has navigated the abysses, serving as a reminder that creation is not yet whole, that perils still lurk, and that the penalty of sin still impacts the universe. But once he is killed, once his meat is consumed, Once his hide provides shelter for the justified, the underlying message is undeniable. The previous world structure has passed away. The ancient serpent is dead. The dragon has been vanquished. The monstrous, coiled creature exists no longer. In its stead, a transformed creation emerges, a reality devoid of disorder, an ocean that no longer threatens, a cosmos where the faultless dominion of God rules unopposed. The messianic dinner is more than just sustenance. It represents a watershed moment, the instant when human history shifts decisively from agony to magnificence, from banishment to return, from demise to perpetual existence. And when the final bite is consumed, when the beverage is finished and the hymns are sung, when the joy of that instant settles deep within the hearts of the redeemed, they will finally comprehend. They will recognize the necessity of Leviathan's creation, why he was initially brought into being, why he was protected throughout the epics, why God refrained from eliminating him during Job's questioning, why Isaiah foretold his demise, and why Enoch witnessed him in the deep. Everything was leading to this, for the celebration, for the triumph, for the proof that even the most dreadful elements of creation serve an objective within the divine strategy. And that objective, kept secret for ages, veiled in mystery, is now manifest. Leviathan was destined for destruction, and through his destruction, the loyal secure their ultimate recompense. The Apostle John found himself stationed on the island of Patmos, banished due to his convictions, separated from the congregations he had nurtured, solitary with his Lord. And on the day dedicated to the Lord, he was transported in the Spirit. The skies opened before him. Time ceased its normal flow, and he observed what had transpired, what is currently occurring, and what is yet to come. He beheld the sovereign throne room of the Almighty. He witnessed the sacrificial lamb. He saw the scroll secured by 7 seals. And as each seal was broken, as each horn sounded, as each vial of divine wrath was dispensed, John observed the disintegration of the current epoch and the painful inception of the forthcoming age. Centered in this unfolding chaos, emerging from the depths, was a monstrous figure, a dragon, a serpent, the very ancient adversary who had been lying concealed since the Garden of Eden. His appointed time had finally arrived. Revelation. Chapter 12 commences with the vision of a celestial conflict. A magnificent symbol materialized in the heavens. A female figure adorned with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet, and a diadem of 12 stars upon her head. She was expecting a baby, crying out in the anguish of labor and the pain of delivery. Then, another sign appeared in the sky. Behold, an immense scarlet dragon possessing 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns rested upon his heads. His tail swept away a third of the celestial lights and flung them down to the earth. The dragon positioned himself before the woman who was about to give birth, intending to consume her child the instant it was born. This narrative is not a mythological account. This is the chronicle of history articulated through divine metaphors. The female figure represents Israel. The infant is the Messiah. The dragon is the primeval serpent, the entity who has opposed the divine plan since the earliest moments, and his heads and horns symbolize the various realms, authorities, and empires that have executed his will through history. But the child evaded consumption. She delivered a male offspring who was destined to govern all nations with an iron scepter, and her child was immediately taken up to God and his throne. This sequence depicts the crucifixion and subsequent ascent of Jesus Christ, viewed from the perspective of the grand, cosmic warfare unfolding behind humanity's sight. The dragon's effort failed. The Messiah ascended. The redemptive strategy could not be thwarted, and the infuriated dragon directed his rage towards the woman and her remaining descendants. He pursued them into the desolate region. He ejected a torrent from his mouth to sweep them away. But the ground came to the aid of the woman. The surge was absorbed, and the dragon, having failed to annihilate the church, departed to wage war against the rest of her lineage, namely, those who abide by God's laws and hold firmly to the declaration of Jesus Christ. This defines the epoch we currently inhabit, the era of the dragon's wrath, the era of suffering and oppression, the time when the adversary stalks, searching for someone to consume. Subsequently, in chapter 13, John observes the dragon's ultimate maneuver. I stood upon the seashore and witnessed a monster ascending from the ocean, possessing 7 heads and 10 horns, with 10 royal crowns on its horns, and blasphemous titles inscribed on its heads. The beast I observed resembled a leopard. Its feet were like those of a bear, and its mouth was comparable to that of a lion. The dragon conferred upon it his dominion, his seat of authority, and tremendous power. Herein lies the climax of the Leviathan symbolism. The creature emerging from the water is not simply a political structure or governmental power. It is the physical manifestation of disorder, given vitality by the dragon himself. It represents Leviathan in his definitive, most terrifying state. No longer held captive, no longer hidden beneath the waves, but surging forth, adorned with authority, adored by the world's populations, demanding loyalty from every nation, language, and people. This is the figure of the Antichrist, the lawless one, the man of corruption, the concluding expression of the serpent's defiance. This creature is permitted to utter sacrilege against God, to engage in combat against the holy people, to defeat them, and to govern for 42 months. And every inhabitant of the planet, whose names have not been inscribed in the book of life belonging to the Lamb, sacrificed since the creation of the world, will pay homage to him. This marks the period of deepest shadow, the season of ultimate testing, the extensive persecution described by both Daniel and Jesus. The globe will yield, the nations will comply. The mark of the beast will become mandatory for commerce, and those who refuse, those who maintain their faith, will be pursued, harassed, and killed for their beliefs. A story that began before time and will persist beyond it. A story where disorder is vanquished, mortality is defeated, and God reigns supreme over a universe perfected by his might and compassion. The ocean is absent. The monstrous creatures are no more. And the people of God reside in tranquility, in light, and in eternal joy. Amen.